Welcome back to the Joseph Graham Show. I'm super excited. I have Jason Henderson with me. Now, I met you through my good buddy, James Dixon, who's been sending me a bunch of really cool guests. And I had your wife on as well. So that episode's going to be dropping soon. But I want people to kind of get an idea of who you are in your own words, and who you help.
Well, cool. First of all, thanks, Joe, for allowing me the privilege to be on your podcast. I very much appreciate it. To give you a little bit of background to who I am, I'm a guy that was born in Idaho, Pocatello, Idaho. Some people make fun of that name and everything. But I was the youngest of nine kids, and I kind of grew up in almost like an adult world. I kind of like to say it that way for the fact my oldest brother is 25 years older than I am. So I had lots of siblings that were in a way different time frame as far as life than I was growing up. And so when, we'd go and do things as a family, they had more sway than me. And so we'd do more those types of things. Um, the cool thing is that I had all these mentors. I basically had eight older mentors in addition to my parents who were training me, but they were each one of them had their hobbies, their likes, their interests, and what they were good at. That was a real big advantage. At the same time, it was kind of like a disadvantage in that I wanted to be the quarterback, right, on the football team, and I wasn't the best quarterback in the family. Trevor was, or I wanted to play the piano, learn to play the piano. Well, the best piano player was Melanie. You know what I'm saying? And so most everything I attempted was there was always someone older than me that had been doing it longer than me that was better than me.
Mhm.
Now, what that turned into is I became fairly competitive, and I also was always wanting to do better than them. Not that I didn't like them, I admired them. It's just that I wanted to, have my own space, right? And so I wanted to, and when it came to different things, I wanted to know my facts. I wanted to know the details so I could add to conversations that my older siblings were having that probably I shouldn't be having given the age I was, right? And so what it caused then is for me to say, when I got to college and stuff, it's like, hmm, I need to go more school because some of my siblings have it. And then I went on and got a PhD. None of my other siblings have a PhD, so I can kind of hang my hat on that. And then I'm not putting it in their face. It was just that's who it was. It drove me to do that, right? Towards the end of my PhD, I decided to do a postdoc, which is just postdoctoral work. And I went to Caltech, and the guy I worked with later won the Nobel Prize in chemistry. And one day he posed a question to me as, well, if we're so smart, why aren't we rich? And of course, he looked at me and it's almost like, if you are so smart, why aren't you rich? And I tell you, that bugged me. I had spent all this time becoming essentially a world expert in a very, very narrow part of the field of chemistry, organic chemistry, and in specifically surface modification. Anyway, I started on a quest. I got my first job after being at Caltech up in the San Francisco Bay Area. Started off with, a really high salary and was making a lot of money. I was in the six figures. However, it was almost like I was working paycheck to paycheck.
Mhm.
I didn't get out of what I later learned was the rat race, right? Because later, as I got away and started having more time and not having to do research all the time, I started reading books to figure out, well, if I'm so smart, why aren't I rich? I knew that I could figure it out. I knew that I had gone from, going into university first to becoming a world expert, albeit in a very small segment of that field, right? But I was the world expert, right? I published 28 peer reviewed publications. I've been on in Science, the magazine Science, three times. In fact, one time my research was the cover. I had five patents. I thought I was smart, man. I thought I was all that in a bag of chips, right? But I wasn't. And so then I started reading. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read Think and Grow Rich, Richest Man in Babylon, and on and on and on. And it became a multi-year thing, understanding what is it that I need to do to be rich. And one of the very first things I realized when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad is I had a father that was both. He was rich dad in practice, and he was poor dad in advice. See, he had bought into the whole thing that, oh, you get a good job, you work for X many of years, and then you retire and you're fine. Well, here I was, I was about as much education as I could get, and I was living paycheck to paycheck. Bay Area was expensive. This was, late 90s, early 2000. Well, in fact, I was in San Francisco on September 11th. Um, what's going on here? What's going on here? But what I found out is, look, my dad's been in real estate. My dad's been an entrepreneur. My dad's learned how to make money, right? Earn money outside and have money working for him 24/7. I need to do more like what Rich Dad's doing. And so then when I actually moved away from San Francisco, came here to northern Utah where I live now, I jumped way headlong into it. I still had a job and I raised to the top of that. I was vice president in a very short period of time of that small company. Yet I was looking for other ways to become wealthy and what to do. And in my search, I came across a book called Becoming Your Own Banker. It's by R. Nelson Nash. I could not believe it when I read it. I got through with it. Was having a hard time sleeping. I turned around and read it a second time. I turned from page 94, whatever the last one is, to page one, and read through it again. So this can't be true. This can't be true. This is too good to be true. Well, I figured out a number and I called the number, and Mr. Nash actually answered the phone. And he became, from that telephone conversation until the day he died, he became a personal mentor to mine, teaching me how to do that concept. So what I did is I started doing it part-time, teaching other people, showing them, say, hey, you need to understand this. This is the way the wealthy operate. This is what they do. This is how, this is the way, right? And I got super excited. I got super excited. So look, I can now do something for my kids and make it so that my kids do better than me. Before that book, I was still I was still struggling with it and thinking that, the American dream's dead. There's My kids won't do better than me. Period. I can't do for my kids what my dad did for me. But I read that book and wow, my life changed and I changed everything. In fact, I started teaching that part time for about 5-ish years, and then 2009 came along. My company went from 44 to 13, and I was the highest paid non-owner, and I was one of the first to go.
Mhm.
And I found myself unemployed, facing a lot of different things happening. Had several children. I had 5 with one on the way, and what do I do? Well, I figured it out. So we said, look, we're just going to do this full time. And so I have been full time ever since then, showing people how to own, operate, and think like a banker.
I love that. I love, so I'm like listening to the story in the web and how it's weaving in the beginning, like you're the young kid and you're trying to find your niche and your nat and what you wanted to do, and other kids had done it, and then you go to school and you're like, I've hit the pinnacle. I'm the expert. Like literally you're the expert in this area, but you weren't content or happy with it because I think you were always searching for what you wanted, but until you had that epiphany moment when you read that book and realized what you stepped into now, it was like just that progressive. It's almost like you have a thirst for knowledge, but then applying the knowledge, which is amazing because a lot of times people have a thirst for knowledge, but they don't apply it, or they want all this stuff, but they don't learn. So I love that aspect of it. So since 2009, you've been training people how to be their own banker. What does that mean? Because people are like, well, yeah, how do you be a baker? I don't have millions of dollars sitting around. That's probably would be the first thing someone would say.
And you don't need millions of dollars, right? And that's the first people think, oh, I don't have millions of dollars. You don't need that. It's that the fact that so much, well, let me back up. The most important business in the world is banking, right? Without the banking business, all other businesses come to a screeching halt. Let's say I wanted to sell you something and you gave me your credit card number and I enter it in, I get my money and I send you whatever it is I sold you, right? That's going through the business of banking. Banking allows all other business to be there. Well, we have become complacent as a society to simply accept that business transaction and the fees and everything that comes along with it. Let's say what I sold you is $100, you get $100 charged to your credit card. $100 doesn't hit my account. We all know that. We don't. We silently know it, but we don't really realize that maybe $97 or maybe $96 hits my account The banking business gets that other, right? And so if we really think about how much fees and finance charges we have incurred during our lifetime, that's an astronomical amount of money. And were it possible for us to have that money now instead of have given it to another business, wow, our life would be way, way different, right? So how can we learn to be in that business to say, okay, I can still transact with other people, yet I get that 3%, 4%, or whatever it is. Or maybe when I finance a car, I get that interest versus someone else getting the interest. And the big kahuna, right, is mortgages, home mortgages. Everybody knows the first 5 years of your mortgage payments on your house, it's 75 to 80% of everything you pay is purely interest. Put in a different word, that's profit to the banking system, right? And so I want to show people, number one, wake them up to that. And number two, then say, is there a way that I could get in the banking business? Is there a way that I can own the business, a bank? Is there a way that I can then finance things using that business for myself? Can I finance my own car so that the interest goes to something that I own and control? And it is possible.
Interesting. So I'm because my mind's like turning here now. So you like say you buy a car. We'll use something that was pretty easy. So when you buy a car, you take the money from yourself and you pay yourself interest. Is that how that works? Is it that simple, or am I just missing the?
Yeah, at the absolute most simple way is we could get a mason jar, okay, and we're going to put it on our table, our kitchen table. And every month, instead of saving, putting money in a 401k or some savings account or something, we're going to put the money in that jar. I don't care how much it is a month. Let's just say whatever. And it gets to, say, $30,000. All right. And we want to buy a car. And we say, okay, well, do I borrow, go get a loan and pay someone else interest? Or do I take this money out of this jar and pay cash for it? Now, most people would say, well, I take the money out of the jar and pay cash for it. That's not a good thing for the fact that you finance everything you buy. Now, in that scenario, when you took all the cash out of the jar and gave it to the dealership for the car, who finances that, Joe?
You do because you're using your
Right,
cash.
your future self, right? Because your future self doesn't have the $30,000. Way, if you will, is you would put an IOU. So you would put IOU Joe $30,000 plus interest over 5. Now you make a car payment to that jar. When you get done, the jar is going to have all $30,000 plus a few $1,000s worth of interest that you paid your future self.
Mhm.
That's banking. That's simple banking, taking care of your money the same way the bank would take care of their money. Well, from that mason jar to several different places that you can store cash, there's you can get more benefits. Could we do that inside of a savings account? Yeah, we could. We could do the exact same thing, make payments back to our savings account, and the savings account is maybe earning 1-2% interest. Can we do it in a stock fund? Yeah, it could be earning maybe some more interest, but we really don't know. That's risky. And what you really find out is where the absolute best place to store that money and use that as a banking system.
Makes sense. So, but I know people are going to say this. I get that, but Jason, you had the $30,000. I don't have that. How do I start now?
Start now. And that's where, the richest man in Babylon comes in. The number one message of that whole book is a portion of everything you make is yours to keep. And when I talk to people, and even it's on my business card, a portion of everything you make of you what a portion of everything you make is yours to keep forever. And I add that for the fact that it needs to be good for me, it needs to be good for my future self, and it needs to be good for my children, my grandchildren, and the next generations. And so you simply start, and you'll be
Mhm.
amazed at how it starts to build up and compound. You want to take advantage of uninterrupted compound. Let me tell you a quick story. So I worked with this young couple. Went to their house. They were renting the house. Both of their cars were, financed. And the main thing they want to talk to, well, I don't have any kind of retirement at my place. We don't have a 401k at my job. What can you do? How can you help me? And I looked at their finances and I said, well, I don't see that you're really living that first principle. You're not keeping a portion of everything you make for you. I
Hmm.
want you to show me that you can keep this amount of money and make deposits to an account regularly over the next 6 months. I want you to show me that. So I came back in 3 months and then in 6 months, and then sure enough, they did. So then I showed them, so okay, based upon how much you have been saving, we're going to set up a banking system and you're going to have some cash there available. And then I showed them, look, you can get loans from your banking system, say at 5%, and we're going to strategically pay off your credit card bills. 19, 21, 25, 28% interest, whatever it is. We're refinancing. So we're putting money here, saving them. Now, in this account, the money never leaves. It continues to compound at its gross amount, yet you're going to take a loan against that and we pay off the credit card. Well, the next month, instead of making that credit card payment, you're making a loan, a payment back to your banking system, right? So for the fact that that loan's at 5% or 6% is way less than 25. So what happens, we got all our credit cards paid off real fast. It was a matter of a few months. Well, and you can fast forward a little while. I kid you not, this is the conversation. Okay, we'd gotten their cars paid off and some stuff. And anyway, she called me, she goes, there's a problem. And I said, what's the problem? She goes, we have more money than we're supposed to. I said, oh man, that's terrible. Tell me about it. What's happened? She goes, well, we have our paperwork and we've been following what you do, but I called in and I got the value of what we have, and we have more money than we're supposed to. Well, that's really, really weird. Tell me more. We got the credit cards paid off, yeah, and we got your card paid off, yeah. We got your husband's card paid off, right? And you're still making those payments, to full out. Says, yeah, we're doing that. Because I just don't understand. Why do we have more money? And she stopped. And she finally realized what a dumb statement. I mean, I'm not calling it, but it's just like, are you
And I
serious?
get it.
Because at first I had to hold back. I saw you smirk, right? The first thing is, I have more money than I'm supposed to. May we all have that problem. May we
Yeah.
all have that problem every day, for the rest of the time, right? But she didn't realize that for the fact that she had been operating and thinking correctly about how money works, that she had more money than what they had expected, what they had projected. And it
Mhm.
was just a fun conversation. So
Yeah. Well, but it makes sense because if you start paying yourself and you, like you said, you got rid of the credit card debt, you get rid of the car debts or whatever. And then if you go to purchase something, you pay yourself back and then you charge yourself the interest, you're going to compound it over time because you're not going to lose the principal, but that interest will keep going and growing. So that makes sense. I'm just thinking about it in my head here. It's so simple. I think that's why our minds are trying to wrap around it. Like I know there's listeners going right now. I'm missing something here because it's simple. Like what I'm hearing you say, and tell me if I'm wrong, is you take the money when you go to take a loan out on it, you put the money back and you put 5, 10, 15% interest in it, and that keeps going so that when you go to take money next time, you're still going to do that and it compounds. But I think it sounds so simple that it sounds hard.
okay. And that's the thing. It is that simple, right? There's the mason jar on the kitchen table is about as simple as I can make it. Yet that is the process of baking. Baking's not a business. It's not I mean, it is a business, but what I'm talking about is not a product, it's not a business, it's a way of thinking, right? It's a process, it's a behavior. It's a behavior of treating your own cash the same way someone else would be treating their cash in the event that they loaned it to you, right? They're not going to just give it to you and then simply not charge any interest. Well, why do you do that with your own cash, right? If you just simply think the way they do it, you're going to be, I mean, you could just take this mason jar idea, run with it, and you'll be amazed what you would have in, 10, 15 years from now. There'd be a lot more than what you'd projected. Well, of course, you don't have any growth there, right? You don't have any interest that's going 24/7 for you. So then you can move it to some different types of accounts that get better and better.
Mhm. I think it's the delayed gratification that people have the hard time with, because like this is very in some similarities, so a little bit like Ramsey with doing the envelopes and doing other stuff. It's similar in other aspects, but no one that I've talked to has ever said, well, why aren't you paying yourself interest if you're using your money? That's what the bank does. That part right there, that's gold. And then here's the crazy thing. I'm just because here's my mind goes. You were making those payments before, so don't stop making the payments once the car's paid off and you paid yourself back. If you keep putting it in there and you have cars that are paid off, you just keep compounding that money and the interest to the point where if you want to go on a trip, cool, and then you pay yourself interest. Like that's such a simple. I love the concept. Now my mind's just doing this whole pop thing with it. So I think that's cool. So that's in a nutshell. That's kind of what you teach people. It seems to me like there's got to be something more here, and then maybe it's just that my mind is like, how did this just that simple work?
Well, it's again, it's the process. You can get that process down. Now you're going to be on the hunt to where's the best place to store my cash? Is it in the mason jar? Is it a savings account at the bank? Is it in a stock fund? Is it in futures? Whatever it is. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of different accounts. And people that are in Congress, etc., know about it. Where they're going to store their cash like that is inside a whole life insurance policy. Okay. Now, before you turn your nose up, say, that's crazy. Let me tell you a few things. Almost every president of the United States has one. Um, F. Roosevelt, FDR, right? When he passed away, he had north of $600,000 in cash value in his policy, which today is more than $5 million. Um, I wrote part of a book called "Get What Congress Gets," and that's in that I went through the public records of everybody that was in Congress, both in the House of Representatives, the senators, the Supreme Court, the presidency, and found out because it's in public record what they have, how much they have in cash value. And the average across everybody at the time was $347,000 and some change, right? Um, the vast majority of them, the junior people that had only been in Congress, say one term or Senate, one term, right? They had nothing. Yet those that have been in Congress a very long time had massive amounts, massive, and in the millions, right? That is the best way for the fact that when you take the money from an account. So let's go back and say, all right, we're not going to use the mason jar. We're going to use a savings account. And we have $30,000, right? Well, we take everything out of that savings account. That account's now zero. We pay off or pay cash for the car. And then very next month, let's say our card payment's $500. We put $500 in there. Well, that $500 is going to start earning interest on $500, right? And let's say it's a 5-year loan. So for 59 months, that $500 earns 1%. The next month, there's another $500. So now we have another 500 that grows for 58 months and then 50. You see, I'm saying how it would stepwise up. When you own and control a whole life insurance policy with a mutual company that's designed for cash, and there's some tricks there, there's some landmines that you need to know about. Your money never leaves your account, so your account is still $30,000, even though you have a loan for 30,000. Pay cash for the car, and you're making payments back to this insurance company. The money never left your account, so it's compounding at 30,000. It didn't go to zero and then
Got you. Okay.
500,000, right? It's compounding at 30,000 for the fact that you took a loan. Your cash value was your collateral. You actually got a loan from the insurance company, and you're paying them principal and interest, which is okay for the fact the amount of interest that you're paying every month is going down. What's calculating here, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's not the most efficient way, and it's kind of crazy math, but one of the things you could say is that, what, my money's growing at 4%. I could turn around and pay 6% on my loan and still make money in the transaction. I know that's going to blow your mind, but that's what happens. The difference between compounding at its full amount and then paying on a loan that's ever going down.
Mhm. Well, yeah, because the compound interest, the way you described it, it makes sense because you're still getting the 30,000 principal. Then when you're paying it back, it's still there and it's still growing. And then after that, if you want to, you can put more money into it and it will grow from that compound. Because what I'm hearing you say, and I'm being specific to make sure I'm saying it back right, is say it's at 30 and then you paid yourself back, and then that principal goes 35 or 40 or 50, those numbers still keep compounding. So at 30, after 10, 15 years, maybe it's going to be 45. I don't know the numbers. So I'm making that part up. Or maybe it doubles every 15 years, but that makes more sense. The problem is that we want immediate gratification. So we grab our credit card or we do the things here and then we feel remorse. In reality, if you do it your way, it's Grant Cardone said this, not us. Do you want to get rich or do you want to get rich forever? The way you're talking about gives you generational wealth because that makes it a lot more of a set thing. Now, here's the question. I don't know if legally you can say it's not. Can you transfer that to a spouse or your kids when you die so that compounding interest keeps going? Or do they have to start a new one when you pass?
Okay, so well, I've already said it. It's a whole life insurance policy. So the contract is with the company, and the contract is when someone dies, there is a death benefit. So if I'm insured myself and I've been using this cash, right? When I die, the death benefit will go income tax free to my spouse or my kids, whatever. And you said that a minute ago. You're talking about generational wealth. That's why I say a portion of everything you make is yours to keep forever. It
Mhm.
will pass to the next generation, and it's going to go to the next generation and do nothing but multiply from generation to generation, right? So yes, and that's it's no longer one policy, right? I have a policy on me, I have a policy on my wife, I have a policy on each one of my 6 kids. Actually, I have multiples on me. I have 10 policies, right? And so what I teach my kids is they're doing the same thing. In the event I were to pass away, they have a place to put the money, right?
And they
They're
don't
not going
just
to go
burn it.
spend it here and spend that. They know where to put it because they know what they can do with it over time.
Yeah. No, I love that. Now it's making more sense because in the beginning, I'm like the mason jar. Most people are not um, disciplined enough to put it back in and pay it every month and like, oh, well, we could go to Disney instead or oh, do this. But with the whole life policy, now you have it in a vehicle that you have the payment. And I'm assuming it's probably you can make an automatic payment into it. So it just comes out of the account. And all because I've learned finance wise and stuff, keeping everything as simple as possible. And if it automatically goes out, then I'm not going to have the worries of do I want to send it? Do I not want to send it? So no, I like that a lot. That's very interesting.
You said a lot of people say, I don't have the money. I don't have the money. Well, guess what? Most people now are thinking about this crazy thing called retirement. I and they're putting money in a qualified plan. Well, they're putting their money in their IRA or the 401k or whatever. And the reality is, they don't have access to it,
No, without
right?
penalties, not
Until
at
you're
all.
59 and a half, right? And so, and I can give you an example. Let's say let's say you and I are twin brothers. You go and say, well, I'm going to put a portion of my money in the 401k, and I'm going to say, I'm going to put the same portion into a whole life policy designed for cash, right? And then let's go forward a few years, 5, 10 years, whatever. You have this amount, and I have this amount in our accounts. So say it's roughly the same because we've been contributing about the same. All right, we need to buy a car. What are you going to do? Probably go to a bank or a finance company and borrow from them and pay them principal and interest, correct? Because this is not accessible. Yeah, you can quote unquote take a loan from it, but it's actually withdrawal, and then you're paying back to what it was before, right? In my scenario, I take a loan against that, it continues to compound, and I pay principal and interest to the insurance company while I enjoy this compounding interest. That compounding interest at its full amount while I'm buying the car, that's the real secret. Uninterrupted compound interest is the secret. Any other account anywhere on the planet, it doesn't have uninterrupted compound interest.
Why is it that they allow you to take it out, but the principal doesn't go down for a whole life policy? I mean, I'm
It
liking it. I'm just wondering why it because it doesn't make sense in my head there.
there's a lot of people that say, okay, you've been to, oh gosh, I just lost the term, um, a pawn shop. Okay, let's say someone's really hard up for money. they'll go in for a pawn shop and let's just say, I'm going to take in my wedding ring that's gold, right? And they're going to praise it and say, yeah, that's worth $400. Will you give me a loan for $400? Yeah, we'll give you a loan for $400 plus interest. You got to pay us back interest. If you don't pay us, the ring's ours, right?
Mhm.
That's basically what happens in a pawn shop, right? Well, did the gold lose value? Did the ring lose value? Could the value of the ring go up with gold prices increasing?
Mhm.
It could, right? But yet there's nothing been taken from that. That's collateral. That's what it means by collateral. So with the insurance company, your cash is collateral for a cash loan. Now, another way you could do it is you could take your piece of paper, your policy, and walk into any bank and say, hey, I have this cash value life insurance policy, whole life insurance policy. Will you take this paperwork and the cash value as collateral for a loan? And they will do it. I have done it personally, right? Well, then the bank gives me a loan. I pay them principal and interest. The money never left my insurance policy, right?
Right.
Okay, the exact same thing happens at the insurance company. They'll take the cash value as collateral for the loan. It didn't leave, right? The interest that I'm paying, does it go to the insurance company? Yes, it does. For the fact that it's a mutual company, that interest is really profit, right? And I'm a part owner of the company. I get my portion of the
Ah.
company profit. So there's dividends. So I talked about this growth, this uninterrupted company, but then there's also dividends that comes from the company profit because I'm a part owner.
Mhm.
So I don't feel too bad paying insurance or interest to the insurance company for the fact I'm an owner of it. I own the banking system. I am in the banking business, right? It's phenomenal, and it's something that most people don't know about. And why don't they know about? It's for the fact that the government restricts what can be said about this.
Mhm.
Very severely do they restrict it. Another thing is, in case your listeners want to know, you go into the bank and you deposit your money. What does the bank do with their money? Do they put their money in CDs in their own bank? Do they save it in their own bank? Where are they putting their money? They are putting their money in life insurance. Go Google the term BOLI, B as in bay, boy. Well, it just stands for bank owned life insurance. And what you're going to find is that the banks, all of them, own billions upon billions of dollars in life insurance, whole life insurance, and in the cash values, right? That's what they have as their cash reserves. Well, guess what? Bank of America has more in bank owned life insurance than the total value of their 5,600 branches, the buildings, and the second tallest building in Manhattan. So on their balance sheet, the number one asset in volume and value is bank owned life insurance. The buildings, the bricks, the mortar, the marble, the everything that they have in all their fancy branches throughout the United States does not equal the same as what they have. That's what they're doing. Why aren't we doing the same?
Yeah. No. No. Jason, I love this. I've talked to a lot of people. I've been in sales and business for a long time. I've been pitched a lot of stuff, and I don't feel like you're pitching. Don't hear what I'm saying, but what you're talking about makes so much more sense than almost anything else I've ever even heard of. You make, like you said, generational wealth and do something that it's not risky. Like it's not that like you had to pay your thing, but you're paying yourself back. So it's not like you're gonna have the real estate market fall out from under you or something else. This is, and you said something else. When politicians and super wealthy people are doing something, they know how to make generational wealth, maybe following what they're doing in this regard, not in other regards, because I don't like politicians on either side. I'll just throw that out there. Um, but this part makes sense. And is that what your Master Your Millions book is about, or is that a little bit more something different?
Absolutely. So I also have a podcast, Master Your Millions. And so this book is kind of play on this, but it's leveraging the millionaire's blueprint to grow your wealth, safeguard your fortune, and optimize your tax benefits. That's what that book is. That's what covered back there. Yeah. I talk about it in a slightly different way, but I do talk about this concept. What I propose in my book is the family unit is the best tool to generate wealth. right? I don't think that qualified plans are the best thing to do. So I'm teaching my kids, don't put money in qualified plans, put money in life insurance. And then also buy life insurance on me. For the fact that statistically speaking, I'm going to pass away before they do. And the
Mhm.
death benefit's going to come to them income tax free on a basically guaranteed, right? It's a company that's been around, 130, 140 years and been profitable every year. Well, how much of that company do you want to own? I want every bit of it I can, right? There's tax advantages, unbelievable tax advantages. And that's why I talked about having tax benefits with this. In fact, some of the brightest minds in the tax industry will say that life insurance is the best tax benefit in the whole tax code. And the tax code's 80 plus thousand pages.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting. So let's do this. We're not done, but tell people, I know you mentioned the book, but tell people where they can find you and connect with you.
So, of course, I'm on Instagram at Dr. Jason I. Henderson, but probably the best is askjasonh.com. It's simply a landing page that they can get a free report that talks a little bit about this. It's 15, 20 pages. And then if you want, there's a link inside that digital report to my Calendly and set up an appointment and let's yik yak for a little while and determine whether you're a good fit or we're a good fit. And
No,
truly, the concept's more important than me. I mean, I want to be straight up with you. Stranglehold. We do nothing but grease their wheels. We do nothing but just making gobs and gobs of money. Bauer Report. I don't know if it's the Bauer Report, Bauer, or BauerReport.com. Anyway, you can see that all banks are making between 400 and 1,500% on your money. That's their profit. I think you and I should have some of that. I think you and I should have some of that. My kids should have some of that. My grandchildren, on and on and on.
yeah, yeah. Well, and it's crazy. And then we bailed them out. That's a little jab, and then we bailed them out. So I have to ask you because I am really intrigued. The tiger behind you, the multicolored tiger behind you, is that a picture you put there, or did your wife put that there? I just like it. So is there any meaning behind it, or is it just a really cool picture?
So I have a buddy that found himself in North Africa, well, in Africa, right when COVID hit. Had a little bit of struggle coming home, right? But he was in Uganda. And what he found is all of a sudden everything shut down for those people for the fact there's no tourists. And there's these artists down there that do phenomenal work. And so he bought up a bunch of them and he brought them back to the States. And he says, I'm going to sell these and send them back to the. So he kind of has this I think it's a nonprofit. I'm not exactly sure, but anyway, I saw that lion and I had to have it. I just said, "Oh, it's mine." I didn't ask him the price. Didn't. I mean, it was very very reasonable. It was just like it's mine, right?
Yep.
And I put it up on my wall. He had another one that was of an elephant, which is my wife's favorite, and so we have a. It's much bigger than this one of an elephant in our front. It might even been in the background of her podcast.
It
It's in
was.
the
Yep.
yeah. So it's not the same offer artist, but it came from the same country.
Yeah.
I stare at it all day. It's generally my face the other way on my desk, so I'm looking at that every day, and it just that those eyes just look at you saying, "You can do this, man. I want to be like you, and let's do this."
Yeah. No, I love it. Like it radiates that. No, I agree with you 100%. I appreciate you being on the show. Any other words of wisdom, anything we haven't talked about you want to leave our listeners with?
No, I don't think so. I mean, really, hope is not a plan. Is one thing I say to a lot of people. Is you got to stop hoping and you got to start taking control of what's going on, and control of your money is the one thing you need to do. When I have done a few book signings and different things with my book, and that's what I say. I'll address it to someone and I'll say, in fact, Joe, if you give me an address, I'll send you one. It said take control of your money is what I'll say in there. Take control of your money. When you take control and then make it work for you the optimal way, it'd be good.
Awesome. No, I appreciate that, Jason. And I'm going to leave it at that. Take control of your money, take action because you have one life to live, one life to wake up to that you love living. And you might as well make the money yourself instead of paying someone else. Thanks to you all for listening.